Welcome to Show Me Sports Legacies. This is our first episode. We welcome you into our first podcast where we want to talk stuff going on in Missouri and small communities and big cities across Missouri and adjoining states. Everything from athletes and coaches that are impacting lives and families to communities, aspects of good sports parenting, and fandom and our shared love of sports. It's a great time to be a Missouri sports fan. Tiger football, Chiefs football, and we've had in our recent past some Royals success and world championship. But legacies and dynasties crop up in other places like Northwest Missouri State, where we've seen fabulous results with basketball and football, and high schools all around Missouri, and we're going to talk about all of that. So there's hidden stories, there's stories from the past, some of which are not verifiable, but we're still going to talk about them and have some fun. The idea is that sports are fun, they're inspiring, they're infuriating all at the same time, and we're here to talk about all of it. And we're very pleased to have you with us. And tonight we've got a couple of great panelists, and I want to introduce them at this point. Daniel Gott, Superintendent of Trenton R9 School District, lover of history and the Royals and many other things, and apparently fighting with my other panelists for the lead in a fantasy baseball league.
That's right. I'm going to catch him. That's the goal of the summer here. Now that we're through budgets and things like that with the school, now my goal is to catch Chris in our 20-year fantasy baseball league here.
It's a worthy goal.
Right.
Goal. Okay, Chris Sockenfels. I'm going to call him our super utility infielder. He's kind of a Swiss Army knife kind of fan because his fandom crosses over some state borders here. He's a Nebraska fan. He's a Royals fan. He's a Cardinals fan. What other things?
Coming from Arizona where we didn't have a lot of sports when I was growing up, you had to kind of pick and choose. I don't know how I ended up being a fan of so many different teams and a wide variety of teams. But moving here back in the 90s, it was a great time to be a Chiefs fan, not so great to be a Royals.
Yeah.
And then my wife's family got me hooked on Nebraska football, so that's where that kind of started. But it is a lot of fun right now to be a sports fan in Missouri, especially around the Kansas City area.
Well, these guys have both been coaches. They're educators. Chris now retired as a sports traveler. I mean, he gets to go anywhere in the United States he wants to go to see sports. It's a fabulous life, among other things. He's not just one-dimensional there either, because we got the arts and music and all sorts of other stuff that he's into.
He's very well-rounded.
He is.
Balance is the key to life, right? And keep the balance in there.
Absolutely. Hey, guys, let's talk a little bit of Royals because we couldn't be in a room without doing that. They won today. This podcast isn't going to go out today, so we're not going to talk about today's game, but they've had some ups and downs lately. Ups in that first 2 months of the season, and now they've kind of hit some doldrums with the hitting and the relief pitching. What do you see in the Royals, Daniel?
I guess for me, I'll just say that I'm glad that we can actually say there's ups and downs.
Yes.
Because the last few years has just been mostly downs. We used to talk a lot about how 14 and 15 were talking with Chris and Brandon Boswell, who was right next door to me for years when I was teaching. That was some of the most fun that I can remember being a sports fan of anything.
Absolutely.
And I'm a huge Chiefs guy, Mizzou guy. Sports in general, I just love it all. But that was some of the most exciting moments. I mean, even with this Chiefs run, which is such a blast, there's just something really special about having your baseball team competing late. And
it's like every day. There's tension every day.
Right,
what's going to happen tonight?
And I can remember distinctly, probably in 2012 or 13, having a conversation with Chris saying, I just want to be relevant in June.
Yeah.
Like, just
get past
most of my life, because, early 90s, when I really first started watching the Royals, I was young. I was so young that I really didn't understand. And they were good. They were finishing above 500. We were never making the playoffs, but we were at least above 500. But most of my fandom, where I could really, really understand what was going on, the Royals were dreadful. So for me, this is almost bringing me back to that kind of feeling of
coming back to life.
14 and 15, where I know we're not there yet.
It reminds me a lot of 13.
But it very much like 13, where you can kind of see some promise. Mm-hmm. Now, that being said, we still have some gaping holes. I mean, this bullpen's not going to take us anywhere. we desperately need an outfield, middle of the order bat. But one thing for me, and maybe it's just my recency bias, is, I was at the very end of George Brett. I mean, I remember George Brett as a DH more than anything else. This is the first superstar for me that I can remember being on the Royals and watching someone who's just this special in Bobby Witt Jr. I know Salvi's been great for us, and we had the Alex Gordons, we had the Lorenzo Canes and the Hosmers, but those were all just a bunch of guys who found magic together.
Yes.
But for the first time for me, we had Greinke, and he was something really special. But there's just something about Bobby Witt Jr. for me right now that, like, I don't feel like I've seen that in a Royals uniform. So I'm really excited about that and what we can do.
I think the last time we were really good, the 14-15, even part of 13, it was about the collective group, right? They played together when they were younger. They played together in the minors. They all kind of came up together. Then we added some pieces in the trade, the Greinke trade, and the group was what got us where we wanted to go, right? Everybody kind of chip it in.
Keep the line moving.
Right, keep the line moving. Everybody just get a single. No one's got to hit a 3-run homer. The bullpen will take care of business. And again, not just one bullpen piece, but the 7, 8, 9, 7th inning, 8th inning, 9th inning bullpen magic that we had there for a while. And now this is a little bit different because it's about a superstar and what can we put around a superstar to make this work, because you don't get these guys generational talents, what they call them. You don't get them very often. You got to take your opportunities when you get them to put a team around them that'll get you places. And I think they're trying to do that. Like you said, though, there's some steps still to be had.
Getting Cole Reagans at the trade deadline last year. I mean, you got to have some luck, and then you got to find the Seth Lugos, the guys that are just blossoming, coming into their own, and you can still afford them.
Yeah. The Reagans was massive luck. He was cast away.
Getting rid of a closer from a team that never had a lead.
Right.
And getting a frontline starter,
right,
all-star level.
Who's been wonderful. And for me, outside of the obvious of Bobby Witt, Lugo has been my favorite Royal, I think, this year to watch. He has been so every time he pitches, you feel like we've really we're going to win this game. And that's been a while since we had anything like that. Even in 14-15, we had really solid starters, but also there was always that little bit of, just get us to 6, gentlemen, and then we'll let our bullpen take it from there.
It's a different feeling, right? I mean, with the really, really good pitchers, and there's not that many in baseball now. If you look across the board, even when you play fantasy baseball and look across when you're drafting, there's not a lot of great pitchers. There's like 5 or 10, and then it drops off. And these guys are the ones that, when they're on, they're going to win. You're not going to beat them. And when they're off and have a bad day, you're still in the game, right? Like Lugo's bad days now are 6 innings, 3 or 4 runs, and we're still in the game somehow. And we haven't had one of those guys in a while. And so every time guys like him and Reagans take the mound, you think, oh, we got a really good chance. Or if I'm going to go to the ball game tonight and I see that Reagans or Lugo are on the mound, oh man, I'm going to see probably a well-pitched game and we have a chance to win, even before they throw the first pitch.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit more Royals when we get to the All-Star break and kind of see how this settles out, and we'll get in even more in depth. We call this episode Chalking the Lines because we're kind of setting the boundaries for this podcast. We're also talking about who we are as fans and maybe get some ideas about us. So got a few questions. And the first thing is, what about the game of baseball drew you inside the lines?
Well, I mean, honestly, for me, it was just, I think there's a reason it's called America's pastime, because you just did it. I mean, we just went out and played baseball. I remember playing baseball when we were kids, starting with wiffle ball. And I can remember my very first baseball team that I was on. We were called the Rugrats because it was exciting. I mean, you're getting to wear a uniform and play this game. And, it was something that Dad would come home from work and take you out in the yard and pitch to you, or you play catch. And I don't know, there's just something about the game of baseball that I think it's kind of that universal game that a lot of kids, nearly every kid has played one form or another. Even if it's just a year or two in T-ball, you played it. And I will tell you, my first exciting memory from baseball it was actually my second year, because my dad started me when I was 4. It was my second year, what was called midget league back then, We're on a team called the Bad News Bears. And my friend Charlie Bacon, local sports legend as well.
Yes.
We were on a team. That's where we first met each other and have been great friends ever since. I can distinctly remember him getting his first hit and immediately running to third base. And we're all screaming, you gotta go the other way. And yeah, I mean, baseball is just something I've loved and enjoyed my whole life and played a lot, but have watched a lot more. And it's a great game.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat with you. I grew up in the generation of the Sandlot boys. If you've seen the movie The Sandlot, where a neighborhood group of kids would ride their bikes together, play ball together, and that's just what you did in the summer, right? You played ball, you collected baseball cards. I can remember how it was so important to be able to get your allowance and ride your bikes up to the mini mart and get a pack of baseball cards or two. And then you'd trade them, and then you'd collect them, and all your favorite players. I can remember Darryl Strawberry and Don Mattingly and Eric Davis, and waiting to get those cards so I could put them in my notebook so I'd have some to trade with my friends. And then playing, of course, you always have those dreams. I can remember I went back to my 30th year high school reunion, and we drove around town, and I saw the Little League field where I played Little League, and I can remember as a little kid, and we were set up called majors, minors, coach pitch, and then t-ball. I can remember being a player in the minors we were the Dodgers, and I can remember at that field watching a major league game, which would be 12-year-olds at the time, thinking someday I'm going to be on the majors, and I'm going to play on that field with the other 12-year-olds and kind of dreaming of that. And then it just kind of evolves, right? You just have a team. My team was kind of the Dodgers growing up because Arizona didn't have a major league team. And at night, this is going to sound cliche too, but at night you could get Vin Scully on the radio and listen to Dodgers games every night during the summer. So after you got in and had dinner or whatever, had your game, there was a station that played Dodgers games and you could hear that voice, and it was just romantic, right? About baseball every night and hearing those voices and those players. So that kind of draws you in. And then move back here and, oh, wow, we get a team this close. I'm going to start following this team. And then about 5 years later thinking, why do I follow this team? But it's worth it now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, even before that, because I go way back, okay, Kansas City A's way back. And I remember my grandparents taking me to an exhibition game with the Cardinals, and went down to Old Municipal Stadium, and people were parking in people's yards, and I'd never seen anything like this. I'm a kid from Lost, Missouri, 700-800 people. It was noisy. The rabbit came up out of the ground with the balls, There was a mule out in right field. It was crazy. And the thing is, you become a fan for whatever team you become a fan for. The A's were the most horrendous team in the history of Major League Baseball. The A's didn't have a winning season the whole time they were in Kansas City. They didn't have a winning month. But Monty Moore called the games. My grandpa sold transistor radios, so I always had the newest transistor radio. I'd slip it under my pillow and listen to it late at night. Campy Campaneris, Dick Green, John Blue Moon Odom, names like that. And they were just hopeless. They were out of the race constantly. Well, then they went away, and it was just tragedy. And all of a sudden, we had a team back. And it was just the amazing thing. So I really took on to that. Now, my dad, KMOX, blasted out 100,000 watts, and he was a Cardinals fan. Lots of people in the Midwest were Cardinals
A lot of
fans.
people in the Midwest listened to the Cardinals. They had a huge following, and a lot of the reason was baseball was a radio sport, right? You listened to it you could be in your car, you could be at home, you could be at work, and you could have the ball game on and listen to them. Yeah.
You leaned more Cardinals originally, didn't you, when you first?
When I came here,
Kinda like red teams.
I fell in love with Albert Pujols. So
Sure.
early on, I was more of a Albert Pujols fan and liked the Cardinals because of Albert Pujols. Loved that guy. Loved everything about him. Collected. I was still a card collector.
So
at
does
that
Brad
time.
Lidge.
Yeah, that's one of my greatest memories because I was athletic director at the time at Trenton, and we were at I think it was a JV football game, and one of the players got hurt, and I watched that happen at the waiting room at the emergency room in St. Joe. I watched that Brad Lidge give up that home run to Albert Pujols. That's still orbiting.
Yeah.
The earth somewhere.
My guy was Amos Otis. I mean, I was an Amos Otis fan. For me, he was the first star of the Royals.
Number 26.
And he caught the ball one-handed, and people thought that was crazy, crazy. How did you carry that forward as an adult once you quit playing the game? I mean, you're all attached to it. And what's the greatest thing that you do about your baseball fandom? Do you have a particular thing? Do you sit on a particular chair? Do you drink a particular beverage? What?
I mean, not for me. I've seen the Royals obviously far more when they were bad than when they were good. Back in college, we'd go to so many games, many more games than I would attend now, simply because you could go for $5 and go watch them. And boy, they were just so bad. But we would spend the game, making bets for a quarter. We'd bet a quarter for every little thing, like things like, hey, what odds will you give me if Matt Stairs hits a triple here?
Let me guess and take a stab at this one. That former NCMC basketball coach James Arnold was in on that.
Always, yes, yeah. We'd also bet, when the pitcher left the mound and dropped the ball, is it going to stay on the dirt or is it going to roll in the grass? I mean, you still love baseball and want to watch baseball, but when your team that you love is that bad, you just find ways to make it entertaining when they're getting their brains beat out, So not for me. I just love watching the game. Of course, MLB, I can get on a soapbox about just how awful they are at even making their product available. But mostly I listen to it on the radio a lot and just put my earbuds in and listen to the Royals.
When the Royals got good, a lot of people teased me about being a bandwagon fan. I said, man, I was at the stadium one time and I watched a 15-inning game that Sal Fasano won with the home run. If you're waiting around 15 innings for Sal Fasano to hit a home run, you are a fan.
That's right.
I'll give you one too. When I was, I can't remember if I was in college or just after. I used to go to Royals games sometimes by myself, and sit in the GA, which, if you remember, Royals right field and left field used to be GA from about the foul pole over to the bullpen. You paid your $5 or whatever, and you just got whatever seat that you came across when first come, first serve. So I go to a game, and I think it was John Nunnally. Nunnally was, he hit a home run to right field. And for whatever reason that night, it was kind of cold, and I had a green coat on. So I get home, and I tell my wife, I'm going to be on Sports Center. John Nunnally hit a home run. And she goes, how do you know you're going to be on Sports Center? I said, there was only 3 of us in right field, yeah. And I am the one with the green coat on, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to pick myself out on Sports. Sure enough, we watched the highlights that night. There's the home run. There's 3 people sitting out there in right field, and there's the green coat trying to run up and get the ball that hit about 10 rows up. So, yeah, being a Royals fan, definitely you had to pay your dues early on to get to experience what happened in 14 and 15.
It was worth it, though. It was so worth it. I remember you and Becky Albright at a football game when the Royals clinched the wild card playoff. But we all have our phones, and we're like high-fiving and jumping up and down in this little cluster of Royals fans. It was just so amazing. And then, of course, they came out with their Minions goggles and did the whole thing. And
right,
this is what other people have gotten to do for the last 25 years.
Yeah.
And baseball is one of those sports where the rules in baseball are kind of set up against the small market teams. It is really, really hard to win it all in small market. You can make the playoffs once in a while. Just ask Oakland and Tampa Bay. You can make the playoffs and have a good season, but to win it all, it's very rare that a small market team can put it all together and compete with the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Phillies and the Red Sox that have huge payrolls and all the history. And all the free agents go there. And yeah, so that 14 and 15 and to lose in 14 and then get back in 15 and win it all was quite a 2-year stretch for us fans.
As I suspected, I had a whole outline of things here, and we didn't get through half of it because it just flows out of us, and that's cool. That's cool. Okay, as we move into a different segment, we want to thank Daniel and Chris for that great conversation about their love of baseball and the Royals in particular. We look forward to many more of those kind of conversations. Now, earlier in the month of June, I went over to a St. Joseph Mustangs game. The Mustangs have been around since 2009, playing at Historic Phil Welch Stadium. They are part of the MINK League, Missouri, Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas. Teams from all over, places like Clarinda, our own Chillicothe Mudcats just down the road, are in this league, and it's college woodbat baseball. So these are college players who want to further their career. They want to be seen, perhaps be scouted, and NIL and things like that, being seen, more eyeballs on you, the more opportunities those players get. So we were happy to go over, and I got the opportunity to sit down and talk with Kai Turner, CEO of the St. Joe Mustangs, and he talked about the history of the players that have played in that stadium. And we're talking about people like Satchel Paige, like Mickey Mantle, who played at Joplin and played lots of games in the St. Joe Stadium, cranked a few home runs out when he was an 18-year-old. We're talking about Dan Ugla, who went and played for the Florida Marlins, hit a lot of home runs as a second baseman for them, and played for St. Joseph. So there's a lot of history in that old stadium. The stadium was built in 1939 and has housed the Mustangs ever since they opened in 2009. So we're going to present this interview with Kai Turner, and he talks a little bit about promoting this product, what it is, why it should be interesting to you as an entertainment option and a baseball option here in the Midwest with your family. Hey, we're talking with Kai Turner, who's the CEO of the St. Joseph Mustangs, residents in Historic Phil Welch Stadium. And this hits all the buttons for us. He's got local connections. It's baseball. You guys are off to a really hot start this year.
You know, there's no guarantee that the product on the field. For us, what's important, we always say we can't guarantee if we win or lose a game, but we try and guarantee that you'll have a good time. And so that's where we kind of lay in the stadium experience. But to see what's happened on the field this year has been incredible. You know, last year we lost to Jeff City in the MINK League Championship. In the final game of the MINK League Championship Series, we were trying to go for our fourth in a row, which was unprecedented. It's never guaranteed that you're going to win a game, let alone, you know, your division or the league. But I'll tell you, the way these guys have jumped out to a pretty hot start has been very impressive to watch.
You had a challenge last night, and you just dispensed with them pretty easily from Des Moines.
Yeah, Des Moines been very competitive and has looked great at the beginning. And sometimes it's your night. Baseball's a funny game. Sometimes it can go either direction. It's never about how you start, but it's about how you finish. But it's also great. You know, we're not going to take this for granted. It's nice to get a pretty good head start with the start that we have so far.
I'm excited to be here tonight. You've had some fabulous attendance to start this season.
Yeah, you know, here we are. This is year 15 for the Mustangs. And so we've worked really hard to kind of, you know, set the standard for what people should expect when they come here. And now they push us to expect even more from us, and they keep pushing us. And so every year we try to innovate and get better at what we do. Just like no win, you can't take those for granted. Same thing with people showing up. I mean, you've got to go out and earn it. You know, for us, we're out there having fun. I think what's important. I think the people who come to our games have fun too, and I think that's what brings them back. And so the ballpark is supposed to be a shared experience. People share it differently, whether it's your family, friends. Everyone experiences it in their own way. And so we try to provide the best possible experience for them, no matter how they are experiencing it.
Talk about the MINK League and the idea of a summer wood bat baseball league. Explain to people that maybe just don't know what's going on right around them.
Well, you know, collegiate summer wood bat baseball, that's a mouthful. But just basically saying like our guys are college baseball players that, you know, want to go pro eventually. In the world of college baseball and college sports nowadays, it looks a little bit different than what it did 10, 15, or any time before. It's always evolving, you know, with players transfer portal or NIL or all these other things that are so much different than what we've had in the past. And so to see these guys now, you know, it's really impressive. I mean, there's a lot of future major league players that show up in the, you know, MINK League. We actually just had our first one who played with the Washington Nationals this past season, but I know throughout the league, whether it's Chillicothe, Sedalia, Clarinda, who had Ozzie Smith and some of these other guys, I mean, you don't know who's going to be the next player that you see on a major league roster. So it's really fun to see these guys at their level, their approachability, just you can on and off the field, but then this level of play that you see from them too. I mean, and the desire. So it's fun to watch them, and they're right here in our community.
Talk to me about playing in this old stadium. What are some of the benefits, the history of baseball here in St. Joe?
Phil Welch was built in 1939, and we've done there's so many different memories here, you know, back from when people come in here and they talk about watching a circus here, to different teams who have been here, to Mickey Mantle, Yogi Berra, Satchel Paige, Dizzy Dean. These names continue, and so you think about the history that's within these walls. You know, for me, it's a little bit special, a little bit more special. You know, my great-grandfather helped build the stadium, which is neat for, you know, me to say that coming in here. I'm sure he never envisioned that when he was out there, I'm sure, you know, working away. And so I've got a little bit easier now. I just get to try the hot dogs, but it's a great place. And so, you know, for us, we actually just came out with a new program called the 1939 Club, which is basically a way for us to beautify and prepare Phil Welch for the next 80 years plus, as it stood for over 80 years. And so with the 1939 Club, what we're trying to do is it's an annual club, and people can donate to join, and there are some tax incentives associated with that, but this will allow them to spend money that will go directly towards Phil Welch Stadium. And our first project is we're going to try and hopefully get a video board brought to Phil Welch before next season. And so that's the goal, but it's incredible to see how it's been here since 1939, and here we are in 2024, and the future is a beautiful place. So we want the ballpark to be a new experience for, the next generation as well.
I walked out to the old wall and tried to imagine 18-year-old Mickey Mantle hitting it over that wall, because he did, playing for Joplin back in the days, at this stadium. It's kind of amazing that's got that history.
Well, and Mickey, I've heard some people who were actually there one of the days he was here, it rained. And so Mickey was here putting on a hitting clinic. And I'm sure it was just something back then, you earn a few extra bucks. And so Mickey was putting on a hitting clinic. And now it's where our beer barn stands. Mickey had a chair out. And I guess, it's kind of ironic that's where our beer stand is now, because Mickey had a few beers while he was there. And then he showed up in the rain and just started cranking balls out. And so, now we still honor his legacy. We have like the Mantle dog here. The story goes that Mickey was here. He asked for some macaroni on his dog, and so we serve a macaroni hot dog with Mickey's name on it. We also have the other rumor that Earl Weaver was married here at home plate. And so, it's just the story is fun. The stories that could be told here, and we don't take those for granted, and we want to continue to tell more stories.
Love it. Now, one of the themes of what we're going to try to do with this podcast is talk about how people come out of small towns and they have this love of sports, and then they go and they find their place in the sporting world. And there's a lot of different paths to that. Talk about your bona fides around the Trenton area and in Northwest Missouri.
Well, for us, it's incredible the people that we see here. So, last year alone, I've seen people from Jamaica, Iceland, New Zealand, and that doesn't even, right now we have someone on staff from Japan. We've had players from Japan, Canada, France. But it's also the community that you meet here while you're at games, and how you become family, friends with a common bond, and what you cheer for. And we're here for a baseball game, but it's really unique. For me, I've got parents who grew up in St. Joe on my mom's side, but then on my father's side, they grew up Central Missouri, Brookfield area, Marceline, and I am a Disney nut. And so I love the history there. But then, also being from, my father was from Trenton, played for Mike Arbuckle. When Mike, before he was with the Phillies and then the Royals, Mike was a coach at Trenton High School. I think it was his first year as varsity basketball coach at Trenton that my dad played for him. And so still to have family there is neat. And so, we all have a different story to tell and what it looks like, and we all have different paths. And when we have you here today, our job is to make sure that we have a great night and gives you a memorable experience. Hopefully it's positive.
Absolutely. I want to appreciate you for your time. Love being here, just kind of soaking it up tonight. Wish you the best of luck and the continued success this season.
Hey, I appreciate it. And, anyone listening, he didn't have to pay me any royalties for this. He's doing an awesome job. So make sure you keep listening if you are. And if you get a chance, come check out a Mustangs game at Phil Welch Stadium. We're here all summer long.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, we want to thank Kai Turner for taking time during a busy day to talk with us here at the podcast. After got settled into the game, kind of went Chillicothe Mudcats' way. By the end of the 8th inning, it was a 6-3 game. I'd had a Mantle dog, which I couldn't recommend unless you like macaroni and bacon bits on a hot dog. If you do, that is the sandwich for you. It was a little bit much for me, but they did, in fact, have a Mantle dog. Watched the game from different vantage points around the stadium. It was a lot of fun. There were a lot of folks there, about 1,700, and they started making noise in that 9th inning when the Mustangs started a big comeback. So at the end of the night, a 6-3 lead for the Mudcats evaporated. Became a 7-6 Mustangs win. They set off the fireworks. It was all pretty cool. Enjoyed the noise from the crowd, enjoyed the excitement. Started to go out of the parking lot, had to turn a different direction because they were shooting the fireworks so close to the boulevard. So that's kind of your small town touch there. A lot of families out there. It was good to see. I would certainly recommend it. It's about $8 for a basic ticket. They got a lot of things going on. Look at their stuff on stjoemustangs.com. They've got ball games out through the middle part of the month. A couple more weekends at least left that you can get out and see some Mustangs baseball. They play a lot of games Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I would recommend it. Thank you for listening. Really enjoyed our conversation with Daniel and Chris. Enjoyed talking to Kai in the interview and going to a Mustangs game. We'll look forward to our next episode dropping in a couple weeks. Hang in there as we're kind of doing a soft launch with Show Me Sports Legacies. And we look forward to presenting taped and live interview information as well as good baseball discussions and other sports as we move along into the summer and football gets kicked off. So thank you for listening. Jeff Crowley, Show Me Sports Legacies.